next weekend. Joe's going to be a spectator on that. He's also inducting his buddy Uriah Faber into the Hall of Fame on Thursday, which is pretty cool.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Like you said, I can come anytime.
Yeah.
Down the street.
Hey, if
Benavidez, they call me.
If Arda ever starts messing up, we'll just replace him. You'll be the new permanent co-host.
It's been 2 weeks, guys. All right? It's been 2 weeks.
Well, Joe,
all I do is talk to people when I see them anyway, so it's kind of nice.
Joe, it's what have you been up to lately? You were scheduled to fight in June. You had to withdraw from that fight with really the biggest injury of your career. It's a torn ACL. Currently rehabbing it. You're in here in the studio. You got a crutch with you. What has that process been like, and where are you at with the rehab?
It's awful. Like, it's actually the only injury of my career ever. 11 years of fighting, and first time I've ever had to miss a fight, pull out of a fight, even miss a significant amount of training. I've missed training, because I needed it and I wanted to, but I've never had to miss it like I have now. And oh man, it's definitely tough. I got injured about 4 weeks out from my fight in New Zealand with Ben Nguyen, so I was obviously looking forward to that. Me and my wife had a trip planned to Bora Bora right after New Zealand, and it's just like things never happen as they're supposed to in this world, so get injured, and it's been an experience, nonetheless. Just of everything. It's one of the harder things I've ever had to do. The surgery to start off, when I heard I had to get surgery, that was terrible. I'd never had surgery before. Went in and did that with the best doctors in LA, Dr. Kavitny. I think he did like Kobe's ACL. I think he's done a ton of other big ones. We saw like Lionel Richie in there that day, and I was like, I think we're good. Even though I don't know how athletic Lionel is. But still, if you trust that place, we were cool.
Yeah.
John Hamm was in there. I saw another bunch of basketball players because they were just tall dudes.
You didn't go to like a Las Vegas strip mall to get your ACL surgery?
No. We went and got the best stuff. My wife was there with me the whole time because we had to stay there. I couldn't fly back right away. And then I had to stay in the hotel room, and that was just like a dungeon of hell, like those last few days, because I couldn't move. It was just like a daze. It was super weird. Just getting surgery is super weird. Like, the last thing you remember, you're on the operating table. You feel like you're in a spaceship or something. Then you wake up and you're on the anesthesia, and that was terrible. It was really funny and stuff when it started because I didn't know what was happening on. But once I realized, like, I was basically like drunk, I felt weird and I wanted to end because, I'm like sober. I haven't drank in like 12 years. So it kind of, I don't know. It was terrible. And then those first days, man, they were rough, like every day. And I wasn't trying to take a bunch of crazy painkillers. So I felt a lot of the pain that you would after those days. And, yeah, it was tough, man. Like, tough to sleep, tough to really do anything. Cried a lot every day. And now I'm better. Like, my leg is good. It's not obviously as mobile as I need it, but it's normal. Like, I'm used to it. Like, it stays basically the same for like a week or a month. Like, there's not big changes on it and not any pain. It's just I can kind of bend it. I can walk on it, obviously, but it's slowly and surely, like it would be. So it's a long road, but I think it's just an experience, more than anything.
Man, and so especially like when it's coming at this point in your career, I mean, where did you feel you were at your point in your career? I mean, you're sort of the uncrowned number one contender at all times.
Yeah.
But it's just, you're not getting those fights. So what was going on, before the injury in terms of the matchups you were getting, sort of your long-term vision, and how does this affect that now?
Yeah, it was crazy. Like you said, not that rankings matter because I was the number one contender the whole time through, every fight, and proved that even on my last fight beating the number 2 guy. But yet the fight I got injured for, I was still fighting the number 13 guy in the world, which was fine. That's what I do. I'll fight people for money. That's my job. In New Zealand, wherever it may be, even better, get to travel the world. So that was cool with me. I was excited for the fight with Ben. I actually think he's a great fighter, and he went out and actually beat Tim Elliott, who had just challenged for the title. So I think there's good talent out there. Like we said, rankings don't really mean anything. It's a number by your name, and it happens. But obviously, being up at the number 1 spot, and that would have been my 7th win in a row. I'm expected to go for the title every fight I win at. I'm like, all right, this one has to be for the title. This one has to be for the title. So
you do feel that every time? So you get let down every time when that doesn't happen?
I mean, not like the first 2 or 3 fights, but after like 3 wins in a row and then seeing like the state of the division, I'm like, oh, I should probably be in there instead of that, you know? And it's not necessarily a letdown. I'm just like, I would basically give a better fight than that person. And if you want to see the best 2 guys in the world fight, then that's the fight to make every time.
Joe, what do you make of the comment that Dana White said regarding that fight with Ray Borg, where he said, "You want Ray Borg? We'll give you Ray Borg. I'm sure the fans will be clamoring, and ticket sales will be through the roof, and pay-per-views will be off the charts." What do you say to that?
I mean, it was a dig at Demetrius because their relationship, I don't think, is the best right now. And he was obviously trying to get Demetrius to fight TJ, which was a bigger fight for the fans. And I thought DJ said he wanted to take that too. I'm not really sure. But I think what I take it is like, hey, well, you could have had a bigger fight and you didn't. So here's the fight you're doing. Here's what we expect from it. That's kind of how I looked at it. And I don't think he's been really shy with, you know, putting Demetrius on blast lately. So I think he just went for it, you know.
What was your take on Demetrius had his reasons, and he had his complaints when it came to not only the Dillashaw fight, but his stance with the UFC in general.
Yeah.
What did you think as another flyweight, though? Because it has been a struggle, it has been a challenge to get people to buy into the flyweight division.
Yeah.
It did seem like to me that TJ dropping down in weight, you know, willing to do that. He's a former champion at a higher weight class. That would have been a big fight for the flyweight division. It definitely would have been the biggest title fight, I think, for Demetrius in some time. And then he didn't want to do it. He wanted to fight Ray Borg. As a contender in that division that has struggled to really find its footing with the fans, was that frustrating for you? Like, hey, man, you're the champion. These are the fights you're supposed to be taking in order to gain eyeballs to 125. Did you have those thoughts at all?
I wasn't necessarily frustrated with Demetrius. Like, I was 100% excited when that was going to be a possibility because that's huge. Just like you said, like, we have a former champion dropping down. Everyone knows TJ is already fighting and got his exposure on the Tough Show, and now all of a sudden, you know, Cody's out, and a ton of people are watching the show. Now he's going to go fight Demetrius in our division, and, you know, can mix it up or show how great, you know, Demetrius really is, and maybe have more people buy in. Either way, it was a big fight, but I know Demetrius had his complaints and his concerns with that fight happening, and there was a few things, but, you know, basically money involved. So I think what it comes down to is both sides having, you know, power in their own right, Demetrius and the UFC, and then being stubborn with that power. Like Demetrius, he would fight TJ if everything was exactly how he wanted it to be. And the fact that he's going for this title and he's considered the greatest fighter ever and they're not giving him everything he wanted to be, I think after that it was just a matter of principle and being stubborn. He's just like, if they're not going to give me everything I want to be and they're calling me the best fighter ever, then like they're not respecting me, then I'm not going to do it. So I think at that point it just became like I'm not going to give in.
Joe, I have a question for you about when you return to the octagon and the situation where Demetrius has cleaned out the division, you've racked up wins cleaning out the division, cementing yourself as number one contender. At that point, what does it take for you to solidify and sign a third fight with Demetrius? Do you have to just let your actions speak for themselves? Do you have to keep talking to Dana White and Sean Shelby saying, hey, I want this fight? Do you have to lobby online? Do you have to talk after the cage and say, I want this fight? Like, what is it? What do you think it's going to take for you to get that fight again?
Takes a workable knee, first and foremost. But when I get back, I have 6 fights in a row, so I think when I come back, he'll have beat the guys that were maybe going to contend before me. So I'll still go in as the number one contender with 6 fights in a row. I don't think anyone's going to have a 6-fight win streak by the time I get back. So I'll have that. Other than that, yeah, I don't know how much the clamoring works at this point because, you know, we have already fought twice. There's like something, you know, actually that you can see the results of already. So I don't know how much the clamoring will work as much as it's just performing and getting people excited, because that's when it happens is, you know, obviously I know I can fight Demetrius anytime and it's going to be an amazing fight and I'm capable of winning any night. But what you have to do is you have to get the media to watch you fight and be like, dang, I think he definitely could give him a fight, and them start barring for it. Then that, you know, trickles down to the bosses and them being like, oh, maybe we should do this fight again, and there's no one else. So, you know, it's definitely a combination of things.
during this whole conflict between Demetrius and Dana, one thing that Demetrius mentioned is, he threatened to blow up the division, and I said, fine, blow up the division. And then, Dana was caught by TMZ, which is his media source of choice lately.
I almost wore my TMZ hat. I love that hat.
Why not? Breaking UFC news all the time, TMZ. And so they got him on camera and was like, oh, did you threaten to blow up the division? And he was like, I've been talking about blowing up this division for a while now. You are in that division.
Yeah.
The president of the UFC is saying we've been thinking about blowing it. Is that something that you take literally, or is that still posturing between these two sides? Like, how concerned are you that the UFC is actually considering just saying, you know what, forget it, forget 125, it hasn't worked out?
Well, if it has been, it was weird timing, I think, because if it's been happening for 3 years, it's funny that it's just mentioned when you and the champion are going through this, feud, I guess. So that was what was kind of weird about it. I think it was an easy way to be like, oh, we've already been talking about that. But, like, I guess why not mention it when it was being talked about, even though that's, I don't know. I mean, that could just blow up. If it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. So why talk about it 3 years ago when it's a maybe? And I know that's how the UFC operates. They don't put anything in news and in print until it's a fact. It's not like, hey, we're maybe going to do this, maybe going to do this. Like, they're either doing it or not. So I could also see that. But I think it was just weird timing. It was like all of a sudden you and the guy are going through feud, and then you say the division's blowing up, but then you say, that was 3 years ago.
Where do you fall in the conversation of, I hear fighters say this all the time, that if the UFC machine wants to get behind a fighter, then they can turn them into a superstar. I hear fighters make that argument all the time. That if the UFC would just get behind more of us and support us, then we'd be bigger. And I sort of agree with what they're saying to a certain extent, and then also I don't. And so in this case in particular, you have Demetrius saying, well, you haven't really supported me as much as you could have. I feel like I'm an afterthought. I'm a champion, but I'm not promoted in the same way some of the other champions are. I kind of look at, Demetrius, what they've done with him, and they put him on Fox Network, which if you're trying to build somebody, it seems to me like that would be the place to do it. Free television, network television, get as many eyeballs on him as possible. And then the pay-per-views that he has been on, a lot of them have had big main events, and he's been the co-main event. Some of those cards have fallen through, and he's ended up having to headline them. But to me, it kind of seems like they have put him in positions where he could get bigger.
Yeah.
But where do you fall on that? Like, is the UFC, do they really have the authority and the option to just pick and choose who they really want to get behind and turn them into something bigger?
I don't think so. I think most people that are just starting out and say that, for the most part, they're just, envious of the people that are stars like a Conor McGregor or someone else that's getting stuff that, maybe, they think they're better than, or they put in as much work or whatever, because the way the world works at this point, like the technique, the skill, the morals, the this, the that, all those things, that's not what makes people a star. Like, let's be honest. I mean, there's only one Conor McGregor. That guy's exceptional. And I think that's what a lot of people will compare it to. And that's just not a great comparison. I mean, he's the biggest star in the UFC, so when people say, oh, I could be that, but they didn't, be able to fight around me. I don't have a whole country around me. Like, exactly, you're not Conor McGregor. Like, you don't have a whole country behind you. You're not, you're not everything that guy is, and he is an exceptional person in this fight game and in the entertainment world for sure. So I think most people compare themselves to that. And it's just not true. You're not going to be Conor McGregor because they put you on a few fights and, give you the fights you want.
That's why this whole thing is kind of unfortunate to me, is because Demetrius Johnson doesn't have that type of personality, which I'm not knocking him. A lot of people don't have that personality.
Nobody.
It's hard. There's very few guys who can really just relate that well and be that big and have that kind of presence that commands the room and gets all those pay-per-views in a short amount of time. So his best way to really break through was
being a fighter,
was to tie Anderson Silva's record and then break it. And now here he's got an opportunity to break Anderson Silva's record. You could have added to that the fact that TJ was dropping down. I'm not saying one side is right and one side is wrong. It's just unfortunate to me that they couldn't figure out a way to get this all together. Because now I do, Dana White, as the president of the UFC, probably shouldn't be saying this and kind of like throwing his own fighters under the bus, but his overall point is correct. The fight with Ray Borg does not sell that well. And this is a historic fight. This is for 11 consecutive title defenses. You know, why couldn't Demetrius Johnson and the UFC come together in some way to make that fight happen, make it big? Now all of a sudden the flyweights are on the map more. Yeah. So, you know, it's
that's exactly what I said before. Is just, and I think it came down to just neither of them wanting to give in once they didn't get their way. You know, Demetrius, he has his right. He's the best fighter ever. He's tied the best fighter ever with title defenses and going to break the record. So of course he's just like, I should get whatever I want if I'm considered the best fighter to ever do this, because he knows people get whatever they want all the time, you know. And he's probably heard other stories like, I never asked for anything, you know, I'm gonna, you know, expect this. And once he didn't get it, I think it was just a matter of him being stubborn, and then both sides kind of just never meet. And like you said, it is unfortunate, it's terrible. I don't think either side is really wrong, because, you know, there's sides for Demetrius where you could just be like, take the fight, like that's your job. But also there's sides where you can also, you know, defend him and, you know, his mistreatment, I guess, for the most part. So
do you think there's any part of it that the UFC doesn't like to lose? That if it's going head-to-head with one of its champions and he starts asking for things that maybe they could give in to him, but they just don't want to do that?
Well,
they don't want to set a precedent of giving in to these demands.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. Yeah, they 100% don't want to do that. Once, you know, somebody gets this payday or that payday, all of a sudden it gives all the other champions and fighters leverage. You know, the only thing I would say to that is Demetrius is going to have something over all these guys. If there's a champion that's on his third title defense and he's like, hey, I want the money fight, Demetrius got this, this, and this.
Last question on this. If you were Demetrius, what would you be asking for? If you had defended a title 11 times and you don't have a track record of selling to the public, but you are the best fighter in the world, every outlet is calling you the best fighter in the world, you're going to try to break one of the most meaningful records in UFC history, what would you be asking for? What is the price tag on that?
I mean, I don't even know if there is a price tag on it. It's tough because you always have to take. It's hard to say because I'm not in really Demetrius' shoes. I would hope if I had 11 title defenses, like obviously that was my plan when the flyweight division started, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like beat everyone. I'm gonna win this title first, and this might not be true. This might be in my head, of course, but I feel in my mind, if I was the champion, like it wouldn't be, you know, that stale of a division, and it wouldn't be, I don't know. I would just like to think that, yeah, maybe, you know, more people would be tuned in, more people would like me as the champion. You know, I would think that, because that's what I thought when this whole thing started. So especially if I carried in 11 title defenses, I would like to think I'd be bigger, and there wouldn't have to be like, hey, you know, I need this because I haven't got it, even though I have 11 title defenses, you know. So I would just, I guess, hate to be in that position, you know, to go and put in all that work, 11 title defenses and be considered one of the best ever and still have to ask for stuff.
For your career to be complete, do you have to face Demetrius one more time?
Yeah, I think so. I think 100%. Like, that's, yeah, I mean, it's plain and simple. Like, that's the only fight I really want. I'll take any fight. You know, I was going to fight Ben Nguyen in New Zealand. You know, doesn't matter to me. Like I said, that's what I do.
Joe, would that be a good fight to return on, getting that fight with Ben Nguyen? I think he said he would love to fight you again after he won that fight when he fought Tim Elliott.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, it was already scheduled, so, like, I guess it would just be a long postponement. But, you know, we have to see how he does in the time I'm out as well. I mean, if the only fight he's fighting is Tim and he stays there, I mean, but if he loses in a row, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to want to come in and fight a guy off a loss. So I think as it stands right now, that's still a good fight because it was going to happen anyway. But we'll see how the state of the division goes. There could be some other guys up there that maybe are more meaningful of a fight when I come back. So because it wasn't a huge fight. Obviously, he upped his stock with the win on Tim Elliott. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm not against it for sure, but we'll see in 10 months who the lucky guy is.
So I was going to ask, so if you had an optimal timetable when you would like to see yourself back in the octagon, when would that be?
Well, it's supposed to be 10 months fighting from my surgery. So my surgery was in May, I think. Yeah, May. So maybe March of 2000, that next year, whatever that one is, 18.
2018 next year, Joe.
18, yeah, that year. Yeah, the 2018 year. Yeah.
Well,
so
we wish you the best of luck in the rehab. We'll definitely talk to you as that date is coming closer. And yeah, that's March 2018 is a long time away in terms of everything that could happen in the division between now and then. But hopefully it goes quickly for you. And I know a lot of people are excited to see you back and what fight you get. I mean, obviously, the bigger the better, I would assume, is what you're looking to come back to.
For sure.
Your buddy Chad Mendes was on the podcast last week.
I love that guy.
He hasn't fought in a year, and I still think in the rankings he's like 5 or 6.
Is he?
Yeah.
Did they take him off, or that's your personal?
Yeah. Well, in my ESPN rankings, I think he's like number 5 or number 6. It's hard to move guys ahead of him when they're not beating. It's all the same guys at the top.
Yeah. And if they're not beating him like Chad beat him, then I mean it's really hard to take him out of there. Because I know Chad is a freak athlete, and he can come back and perform anytime, and he hasn't given you reason to think he couldn't, so it's really hard to take him down from there. So, hopefully that sticks with me. When I get back in, they still look at me as a number 1 contender, and ready for whatever fight they give me.
Yeah, 10 months is not too long of a time when it comes to rankings and things of that nature. So, man, we wish you, again, the very best of luck. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll look forward to having you in studio again when the knee's feeling better.
Please do.